Hello and welcome to the Fuel, Run, Recover podcast, helping everyday runners fuel better, run smarter, and recover faster so you can reach your full performance potential. I'm your host, Stephanie Natchek, dietitian, fitness coach, and a fellow runner too. As the owner of Stephanie Natchek Performance Nutrition, I've spent the last 10 years helping runners learn to fuel their bodies, level up their running performance, and establish healthier relationships with food and exercise. If you're ready to reconnect with your love of running, then let's get started on today's episode. So welcome to today's episode where we're going to be talking about how you know what you're doing is working when you are no longer focusing on your weight. And this is a conversation that I definitely have probably on a weekly basis, if not even maybe a daily basis with my clients, because so often we have been focusing on our weight and really preoccupied with that number on the scale. It's been our main metric, thing that we're tracking, thing that we're focusing on for so long that once we start to move away from using that as our main indicator of success or results or kind of guiding what we're doing with our nutrition and our training, we can feel a bit lost. And for so many runners, it can feel so scary and overwhelming to even move away from this focus and this preoccupation with weight that we don't do it at all. We never are able to get away from the scale and really find these other measures and other markers of success because we just don't know what to replace that with. And then we feel lost and very adrift with our eating and our training because we don't feel like we have the structure and that kind of target measurement that's going to make sure that we're kind of dialed in and doing all of the right things. And when we're no longer focusing on our weight, it can be so hard to figure out what the next step is. What do we do instead? And a big part of this is because we're so used to ignoring a lot of other things that have to do with how we feel. We are taught to completely override our body's natural hunger and fullness cues. We're taught to eat a certain amount of food that's on a meal plan or on a diet. We're taught to eat at certain times of day and not at others. We're given so many food rules in our lives. We're given so many do's and don'ts and eat this and not that and this much and not that much and not past this certain time of day and not in the mornings. And, we're given so many rules to follow that we've completely removed how we feel and that natural hunger and fullness and intuitiveness with our eating. That's completely gone. That's completely out of the picture. And so because we're taught to be so weight focused, and weight is a very easy thing to measure and monitor, it makes sense that that is the replacement for how we feel. And that is the replacement for what our bodies are going to naturally be telling us to do. Instead, we can take ourselves and our complicated human emotions and all of these things, take that out of the equation, focus in, follow the plan, track your weight, and you'll get to where you want to go. Because weight loss is the prize, right? Weight loss is the thing that everyone is striving for and everyone is ultimately trying to achieve, right? Getting the scale basically down as low as possible. And despite the problems with this, and despite so many runners that are unhappy in that space, we're taught that whatever is happening in our body, right, that struggle, the suffering, the lack of motivation, the difficulties with training, like the things that happen when we are really underfueled and overtraining and just, killing ourselves to try and get the number on the scale down, weight loss is seen as worth it, right? Weight loss is seen as worth the effort, worth the struggle. And if you just have a little bit more willpower, if you can just push through a little bit harder, then it's going to be worth it in the end. You just have to keep going. And I think that there's a lot of runners out there who are stuck there and stuck in that space, stuck in that mindset, who are, of course, unhappy, but also maybe instinctively know that this is not the path that they should be on. They instinctively know that this obsession with weight and the scale and the things they're putting themselves and their bodies through to get that number as low as possible is not a good idea. All of the things that we're doing, weight loss at all costs, isn't working, isn't going well. We're stuck in this circle of weight loss and weight gain, and we're, starving and don't want to eat, and it's not going well. But the problem is that if we don't focus on our weight, what do we do instead, right? What do we replace that with to know that we're on the right track? And I truly believe that this is where so many runners are stuck in this kind of rock in a hard place, right? It's either continue to kind of buckle down and go down this like willpower path of just eat less, move more, ignore your hunger, just stay driven, stay motivated, and you'll get where you want to go kind of at all costs, right? Weight loss at all costs. Or the alternative here is I have no idea what to do instead. I don't know how to eat and how to train and how to balance it all out if I don't have this like very strict, rigid meal plan and training plan that I'm following. I don't trust myself with food. I don't know how to make decisions about how much to eat, what to eat, when, what foods I should be eating. Like I don't know how to feed myself without a plan. So it's either I'm losing weight or I'm gaining weight because I feel completely out of control around food and around everything that I'm doing. And so we stay on the willpower, weight loss at all costs path because that just is what we know. That's what feels comfortable. That's what feels safe. The great, big, wide open space of intuitive eating and knowing what your body needs instinctively and being able to make your own decisions about food without all of the rules and restrictions, that is a terrifying thing, right? Because we're basically, you're being given the keys to the castle, and it's eat what you want when you want, and learn to trust yourself, and portion sizes, you figure this out on your own. It's a big leap. And I think a lot of runners don't take that leap because it seems like these are two completely opposite ends of a spectrum and two completely opposing views, but they don't have to be. I believe, and what I teach in the work that I do and the work in my program, what I teach in my program, is that there is a transition that can be made here that gets you from starving yourself, from underfueling, from hating running, struggling with your workouts, having all kinds of symptoms of underfueling, low energy availability, and the like, to being a more intuitive eater. There's a spectrum there. There's sort of a transition that can happen that people can go through that gets you to feeling more comfortable, trusting yourself, and making your own decisions about food that you feel comfortable and confident in the long run. Because we all know, we've all been told so many times that diets don't work. And I want to counter that point to say diets don't work long term, right? In the beginning, diets work fine, right? They help people achieve the weight loss. They work for a little while. And if nobody ever lost weight on a diet ever, then diets would not exist. So obviously, someone somewhere is out there having success with every diet on the planet. The problem is that the results, the success is short-lived because they don't work long term. We can't stick to this set of rules, restrictions, low calories, cutting out entire food groups, or only being able to eat certain times of day. That's just very hard for us to do in the long run because we are complex beings with complex lives. And there has to be more to it than just here's a set of rules that you follow and just do this and you'll be fine. Despite that feeling comfortable and safe, I think we all ultimately know at the end of the day that it doesn't really work in practice. And I talked about this a little bit more in the recent episode about meal planning. And do you need a meal plan? Getting into some of that, how having a meal plan, and we think that we need a meal plan in order to be successful, but translating that into long-term adherence to a meal plan is really challenging. And instead, we want to understand food and nutrition and what our bodies need at that deeper level so that we're not stuck in this endless cycle of being on or off a diet or a meal plan. So, all that to say that if we're not focusing on our weight, what are we focusing on instead? How do we know that what we're doing is working if we aren't tracking our weight? So, I have today put together a whole list for you of different things that I like to have my clients focus on, different things that I will, track and sort of monitor to an extent, but also just things that I want my clients thinking about and focusing on rather than being really preoccupied with the number on the scale. And of course, it's not to say that there is absolutely zero benefit to knowing what our weight is, a ballpark, let's say, of our weight. And of course, when it comes to things like hydration status, I do think there's value in tracking things like weight for pre and post runs to know where we're at in terms of fluid losses and stuff like that. So I'm not saying that we're never looking at weight ever again, but that it isn't a great indicator of where we're at with the quality of our training, the quality of our nutrition plan, the adequacy of our nutrition plan, all of those things. So, the first thing that we can definitely focus on, a great thing to focus on, and sort of track to an extent. It's hard to measure, but you can come up with different ways to kind of measure this in a numerical sense. Maybe you've got a scale of 1 through 10 or some such thing that you can use, is going to be your energy levels. This is talking about energy levels for training, as well as the energy levels that you have throughout the rest of your day. If you're adequately fueled, if you are getting the recovery time that you need in between your training runs, if everything is, clicking in and going well and as it should be, you should have enough energy to complete your training runs. You should feel good at the end of your training runs and also have enough gas left in the tank to get you through the rest of your day. If you are unable to make it through your entire training run, and I mean, assuming that you have a good training plan that you're following, assuming the training plan that you've got is at the level that you're at and, it's appropriate for you and your fitness level and your volume and everything like that. Assuming the plan is good, you should have enough energy to make it through those training runs. If you are consistently losing speed, losing momentum, not being able to complete the mileage that's planned for you, that's definitely a little bit of a red flag. That's definitely a sign that something with your fueling isn't quite right. Maybe it's your pre-workout fuel, maybe it's your intra-workout fuel, depending on the length of the run, or it might be just in general that you're not getting in enough calories in between your workouts so that you're not going into those workouts with enough energy on board to perform well. So your energy levels for your training should be good. Not every run is going to be amazing. I mean, we all have bad days here and there, even despite our best efforts to prepare. But, more often than not, you should be able to complete your runs, feel good, and be able to get through the rest of your day with fairly good energy levels. The other big thing that kind of goes along with this, though, is that we should also be seeing better sleep quality. So if what you're doing is working, if the nutrition plan that you're following is right for you and it's making sense, then we should be getting in the quality sleep that we need. An interesting, really common sign of underfueling that a lot of people aren't aware of, a lot of people don't realize, is a big sign of underfueling is poor sleep quality. So you might feel exhausted all the time when you're underfueling. Like you're tired, you could just go lay down on the floor right now and take a nap if somebody told you that you could. But you go to bed at night and you're waking up in a few hours. You're hot, you're tossing and turning. You might wake up hungry in the middle of the night. If you're waking up in the middle of the night and your stomach is growling, that's a really good sign that you probably need to be eating more food. Like your body is telling you something when you're waking up at night and your stomach is hungry and it's asking you for food at 1, 2, 3 in the morning or whatever time. So your ability to have a good night rest, to have good quality sleep, to stay asleep for a longer period of time, and to, if you do happen to wake up for a few minutes, go to the bathroom or whatever, you can fall back asleep quickly. Those are all really good signs that what you're doing is working. especially if you previously came from a place where that wasn't happening. So if you know that sleep quality was an issue for you, which then bleeds into a whole bunch of other problems that we can have with our nutrition, with our performance, with our recovery. Sleep is so important. It is at the absolute core of so much of our health and well-being that if we're having trouble in the sleep department, that really needs to be like a top priority to fix it. And like I said, so many people are underfueling and don't realize that sleep quality is a big sign that something is not quite right with your nutrition. So, better sleep quality, better energy levels. We're feeling good during our workouts. We're making it to the end of our workouts. We aren't, seeing our paces really slow down, or like we can run for a few miles and then it's like, oh, then I had to go to like walk run. And I'm just like, I just hit the wall, ran out of gas, couldn't keep going. Those are all definitely indicators that we are not on the right track. But the next thing is that we should see ourselves getting stronger. If you've been listening to this podcast for a little while, and if you are, then thank you. This is your first episode, then welcome. But if you've been listening to my previous episodes, I did one a little while ago about strength training. And so you may already know that for me and for most, people that work in the running area, but for me, lifting and strength training is an absolute non-negotiable for runners. Like, I'm sorry, I don't care who you are. I don't care how much you hate your strength training and you don't want to do it and you'd rather just get out the door and go get some fresh air and go for a run every day. Strength training is a non-negotiable. So within that, that being said, we're all clear here. You should be seeing improvements in your strength kind of week by week. And I don't mean that you're going to be like jacking up the weights and you're going to just 10xing the amount you can lift or anything crazy like that. But, if 2 weeks ago you could do 10 reps of an exercise using a specific weight, then within a few workouts, you should be able to be hitting 12 reps of that same exercise with that same weight. We should see that build in that progression little by little over the course of the weeks and the months that you're doing your strength training. If you're stuck, if you are not getting any stronger, if you're never able to lift more, maybe that you're not pushing yourself or doing your strength training often enough for that to happen. But if you're consistent with it and you're just not seeing that progress, you're not seeing that strength building, then that's also a good way to know that maybe there's something with your fueling or your recovery that needs to be looked at. This is also why it's important to not be changing up your workouts and doing something completely different every single workout or every single week. Because what we want to see is this slow progression and this slow build with reps, with sets, with weights, little by little, so we can see the progress we're making with the same specific exercises so we know we're on track. If this week we're doing, a squat, a barbell back squat with a certain amount of weight, and then next week we're doing a machine leg press, and then next week we're doing dumbbell goblet squats, and then the next, like, if we're never doing the same exercise, it's hard to know if we are making progress by being able to increase the weight for a specific movement. So we want to change it up. Sometimes, we definitely do want to see progression and doing different things with our workouts, but it doesn't have to be that we're doing a completely new thing every single time we set foot in the gym. There is some benefit to consistency with the exercises so that we can see the improvements over time. So we should have better energy levels. We should have better sleep quality. We should have better strength. We should see those improvements in our strength, that we're getting stronger. And then we also want to see faster recovery between our workouts. And one of the things that a lot of runners will complain about with their strength training is that they're so sore after they strength train. They don't like doing it because they're so sore after for days and days that they can't run. They have to take a whole bunch of days off. They can only strength train like once a week maybe because they're so sore that they can't do more than that. And so with a proper fueling strategy and, of course, a proper strength training plan that doesn't make you overdo it, we should see faster recovery and less soreness between workouts. A little bit of discomfort is normal. I mean, there's definitely some degree of, delayed onset muscle soreness, or DOMS as we often call it, that is expected with strength training, but it shouldn't be debilitating, and it definitely shouldn't be lasting for days on end. So we should see faster recovery time. That allows us to then do more, right? Tolerate higher volumes of training, tolerate more frequent strength training workouts, which ultimately snowballs into the better results that we're looking for, into the faster progress that we're trying to make. Over the months of training, you also should be able to complete progressively harder workouts. So, again, similar to the strength training side of things, or similar to the energy levels for the endurance part of our training overall, if we're stuck at the same distance, the same pace, if we're really stuck in the same spot with our running training for weeks or even months on end, then something's not right. Now, again, this is assuming that the training plan you're following is a good training plan and that it's not the training plan that is just completely inappropriate or beyond your fitness level or whatever. That's another good indicator that something's not quite right with your fueling. Also, though, with your recovery. And nutrition and recovery are very much intertwined, very much interrelated, where, of course, nutrition, the calories, the protein, the carbs, the vitamins, minerals, omega-3 fats, like the nutrition is what our body uses to recover between workouts. So there's this, and then of course it's the time, right? Like the rest and the recovery time that we have between workouts that's so important for our body to actually be able to do what it needs to do to recover. But it's, if we don't have the time, if we haven't given ourselves the downtime and the rest between the workouts to recover, or we don't have the nutrition that we need to recover, both of those things are going to negatively impact our ability to recover in between workouts. So it could be a time thing. It could just be that we're trying to do volumes of training, things that are beyond our fitness level, but it also could be that our nutrition is lacking. So if we're feeling stuck, we're not making progress with our training, we're not seeing ourselves getting faster, getting stronger, then that definitely is a sign. But if what we're doing is working, then we should see those progressions happening. We should be getting stronger. We should be getting faster. We should be able to do more, tolerate higher volumes. Like we should see that fitness level improving over the months of our training. This is something that typically isn't going to happen in the short term. It's more of a longer term thing. So what a lot of people want to know is what should I be looking out for first? Like we want those quick wins. We want to know immediately that what we're doing is going to make a difference. And what I would say is the first thing you should notice is your energy levels. When you're fueling better, when you're fueling properly, the first thing that you should see is better energy. And that means, sleep quality, more energy during the day, more energy for your workouts. You should feel better as you're doing your training. Then, of course, that's going to compound into better quality training. Therefore, maybe more training, like higher volumes, but just that progression with our training that we want to see. And then that builds over time to get better results. But I wouldn't expect that overnight or within that first week, you're all of a sudden going to see this like massive jump in strength or this massive jump in fitness level, because that takes time, right? It's the fuel we put in, but it's also the actual training adaptations that need to take place. And that's just a bit of a longer game. So when you're looking for those quick wins, it can be hard, especially when a lot of popular diets really promise that 10 pounds in 2 weeks. You see it on the cover of a magazine, right? Like so-and-so, they lost 30 pounds in a month, like these crazy numbers. And we want the same instant gratification. We want the same thing, especially when we are shifting away from weight and we're doing the right things that we're supposed to be doing, right? My dietitian said stop focusing on your weight and do these other things instead, and this is what you're going to do to be your best self and perform better in the long run. And we just want to be sure, we want that guarantee that it's going to work. And unfortunately, it's not always that simple or that easy. There is a little bit of trusting the process that comes along with all of this. But I can absolutely promise you that it is worth it in the long run when we stick with it long enough to get the results that we're looking for. So, along with our ability to tolerate higher training volumes, our ability to do more, get stronger, get faster, all of that great stuff, we also want to be seeing reduced injuries and less frequency of things like illnesses. This is another big indicator of what's happening with our fueling and what's happening with our bodies and our nutrition, in that the calories we eat, the energy we get from food, does so much more than just determine our weight. And again, this is just, what we're taught by so many diets and what we're taught by, so many different restrictive ways of eating, that basically food equals calories equals weight gain. That's it. So we need to eat less and move more. We need to minimize our calorie intake, right? We need to do all of these things to be so careful about how much we consume, because basically whatever we eat is just making us gain weight. We eat the smallest amount we possibly can. And what we're missing in that conversation is looking at all the other things that nutrition does for us, all the other things that calories and energy do within our bodies. We have something called our resting metabolic rate, or our resting metabolism, resting energy expenditure. You hear it called all different terms, but metabolism, basal metabolic rate, resting metabolic rate, all these things, they mean the same thing, essentially. They are looking at the calories that your body needs just to keep you alive. And this is surprising for people. A lot of people don't really realize that the majority of the calories that you need in a day, the vast majority of calories that you need in a day, goes into just keeping your body functioning properly, just keeping you alive. And this is everything from creating hormones, right? Proper hormone function is a huge indicator that we are fueling our bodies adequately and correctly. Hormones, if you have a menstrual cycle, right? That regular menstrual cycle, important part of making sure that you're on track with your fueling. Injuries, right? If we are under fueling and overtraining, we see reduced recovery capacity, increased risk for injuries, because we just can't repair damaged tissues because there isn't enough energy to do that. There isn't enough nutrients to do that. And then, of course, this resting metabolism, like part of the other body systems that it supports, brain function, heart function, gastrointestinal, like everything in our bodies, but also our immune system. And so if we're not getting in enough energy, if we're not getting in the right balance of nutrients, vitamins, minerals, right, all those important things, our body can't produce the immune system cells that they need to. And so we are more susceptible to things like illnesses and injuries. So we should be making progress with our training. We should be feeling good. We should be able to finish our workouts. We should have good energy levels throughout the rest of the day so we can make it through everything else that we have on our plates, because most of us do not just get paid to run. We have so many other things that we have to do in a day that keep us very busy. Those are all great indicators that your nutrition is on the right track. The final one that I want to talk about is your appetite regulation. And this one is tricky, because when we come from a history of a lot of restrictive eating, a lot of dieting, a lot of following a program or following a meal plan or a diet that tells us exactly what to eat, what time of day, like just completely disconnects us from our natural hunger and fullness cues, these things get very dysregulated. So we are taught to ignore our hunger cues, right? Push through, don't eat, ignore it as long as you can, because that's going to help you to lose weight if you're not eating when you're hungry. But then we are more susceptible to eating past the point of being full. So we're ignoring not only our hunger cues, but we're also on the flip side, ignoring our fullness cues. And this doesn't necessarily happen every day for people, but it definitely gets us into a restrict, binge type of eating pattern, where we ignore our hunger cues for so long. We only let ourselves eat the smallest amount we possibly can. But then when the floodgates open, they open. And that means that we are eating far beyond satisfaction. We're eating past the point of being full. We're eating until we feel sick. We don't feel good at that point because we are just so dysregulated, so disconnected from that natural hunger and fullness. So some people struggle a lot here with feeling hungry all the time. I meet some runners who their main complaint is that they're just starving all day long. They just can't seem to get enough food. And so they're trying to minimize their intake. They're trying to eat the smallest amount they can, but they're hungry all day long. They're waking up hungry at night. Like it's just, I'm trying so hard to stick to this low calorie diet, or I'm trying so hard to fast, or I'm trying so hard to limit my carbs, but I'm just starving and it's so hard. The other flip side of that, and this is, I almost would go as so far to say that I see this more often than the hungry runner, is the runner who's never hungry. And there are so many people out there who are horrendously underfueled. They are definitely not meeting any of their nutrition goals. They are eating nothing at all because they are beyond the point of even feeling hunger anymore. They do not ever have those hunger cues. Because after so much time of ignoring them, so much time of getting disconnected from those natural hunger and fullness cues, the body just doesn't even feel it anymore. We just don't even feel hungry. And so these are people who can wake up in the morning and they don't eat breakfast. They maybe don't even eat lunch. They have like one meal a day. Sometimes they struggle with hunger in the evening. So like once they start eating for the day, sometimes then their hunger can kick in and they can have a hard time with eating at night, eating a lot at night. But sometimes it's just this like very low appetite all the time. And I'll be honest, that's hard to correct. That's hard to come back from because what we have to do is start eating on a bit of a schedule. We have to start fueling our bodies more, understanding that we've just become so disconnected from these signals, but we will get them back. It just takes that patience and time to start getting those reliable hunger signals kind of coming back throughout the day. And I totally understand, it's inconvenient, right? When we're busy and we don't really have time to eat, we don't really want to stop for a meal. It's like kind of seen as a good thing to not feel hungry. Oh, yeah, no problem. I can go until 1 or 2 in the afternoon and, just have a few cups of coffee, which is an appetite suppressant, by the way. So if you are drinking coffee in the morning, that is sometimes filling the gap. And that's why you're not hungry for breakfast. But it's another conversation for another day. It's convenient, certainly, to not nourish, to not have to stop or pack food or plan or whatever. But ultimately, at the end of the day, eating one meal a day, eating maybe 2 meals a day, you are not meeting your protein goal. You are not meeting your calorie needs. You are not getting enough vitamins and minerals to support the training and the recovery that you need to do as a runner. So, as much as I hate to burst the bubble for some people, I have to let you know that eating very infrequently is a problem. Not feeling hungry all day long, that is a problem. What we want to see is better appetite regulation so that you are hungry at regular intervals throughout the day. Yes, it means you have to stop and nourish yourself. It means that you have to take a break from what you're doing and you have to put healthy food in your body, nutrient-dense food in your body at regular intervals throughout the day. But this is part of taking care of ourselves, taking care of our bodies as runners so we can fuel well and perform our best. Sometimes it's inconvenient. It takes planning. It takes, effort. It takes energy to do these things. But ultimately, if you're feeling really stuck and you want to run better, but you aren't, and you feel like you can't, and you're struggling through your workouts and, you're not seeing weight loss that you want to see, like if things are just not working for you, not clicking, not going well right now, then that is something that maybe is required in order to start moving forward. So if we are on the right track with our nutrition and our recovery, and we take weight out of the equation, some of these are measurable things, right? And I know there's a lot of very data-oriented, numbers-oriented runners out there who like having something like weight to track because it's an easy metric, right? What is simpler than getting on the scale and monitoring and measuring our weight? But some of these things are still measurable, right? When we look at some of these metrics, running performance, strength, these are things that we can still measure and monitor, and we can still get some of the numbers and the data that we like and that make us feel comfortable. So I'm not asking you to give up that whole part of your personality that likes numbers and likes things that you can track. Instead, we just want to layer on a little bit more subjective feelings and start to tune in a little bit more to how our bodies feel and what our bodies need. Because just because we can track something doesn't mean that that marker is more valuable, more useful than something else. And because we like to have data, we like to have numbers, we like to have spreadsheets and charts, and we like to have all of these things, we sometimes will get caught up in numbers and data and the things that we can track and monitor and measure without really looking at what's the value of this. What is this information telling me? And I think that's really important. So instead, what I want you to do is, go back through that list that I shared. Think about the things that I mentioned today. Think about the things that I shared, those indicators that you're on the right track that have nothing to do with the number on the scale. And pick out a couple of things that you think you could probably focus on instead. There are some people who everything on this list will apply to. Some people are going to be like, yeah, definitely can look at all of these aspects of my performance and my health. But for other people, there might be just a few. Maybe there's just a couple of key things that you're like, you know what? That's what I could transition to looking at instead. That's something that I would like to maybe track or focus on instead of my weight. And I think that that's a really great idea. Again, it's not that we are never going to have to weigh ourselves ever again, although it'd be fine if you didn't, but it's not that we have to completely ignore that as a number. It's just there's so much more to running performance, to fueling ourselves, to our health, our well-being, our fitness. There's this great big wide world out there of how we can look at how we're doing that is so much bigger than just that one number that we see on the scale. And I want you to think about that. If you need help with this, if you are feeling really stuck, if you're feeling really frustrated, if you don't know how to break this cycle of eating less and moving more, of undereating, overeating, restricting and binging, if you don't know how to get rid of the scale and sort of break up with the scale, but you know that you want to, if these are all things that have been a real struggle for you, then I would love to invite you to learn more about working with me in my Fuel, Train, Recover online program. So in this program, I help runners learn how to fuel better, how to listen to what your body needs, how to eat more intuitively, understanding nutrition and what you need as a runner, and then integrating that into that confidence and that clarity around feeding yourself. Again, that transition from a lot of tracking and data and calories and measuring and weighing your food and all of these things into making it easier and simpler for you. So taking you from that runner who is feeling the pressure to need to track and weigh and measure everything you eat into the runner who can fuel themselves confidently without needing all of the numbers and the data and the work that goes along with that. So to get you from point A to point B, that's exactly what we do in the Fuel, Train, Recover program. You can learn more about that by visiting my website. I will link to it in the show notes. Enrollment is open right now for the Fuel, Train, Recover Club. So I am so excited to be welcoming in new members. And with that registration, when you join the club, you get access for a full year. So in there, we have educational modules. You've got on-demand resources. You can now download our program as an app, which is amazing. I'm so excited about this. You can download the Fuel, Train, Recover app. So you can learn on the go. You can access resources on the go. You can, check out these videos anywhere, anytime. You can learn about how to become a better runner. But then you also get access to me via live coaching. We have regular office hours. You can drop in, ask your questions via Zoom. And of course, we have live group coaching calls once a month where we talk about all kinds of great stuff like this and answer more of your questions. So as I said, enrollment is open right now for the Fuel, Train, Recover Club. I would love to have you join. If you have questions about this program, if you want to make sure that it's right for you, then I'm super happy to chat about that with you as well. I will also link in the show notes for today as well, where you can just book a quick free call just to talk to me about your goals, what you need, and figure out if this is a right fit for you. So that is all for today's episode. I want to thank you so much for joining me today, and we will catch you in the next episode. Bye for now. The information on this podcast is for educational purposes only and is not to be used or relied upon for the diagnosis or treatment of any health condition. This information does not create a client-practitioner relationship and should not be used as a substitute for professional medical advice.